Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and today we're doing the 1-year review with my Ineos Grenadier. I'm also at about 10,000 miles, so I'm gonna let you guys know what it's like to live with and if you should actually consider purchasing one of these. Let's get right into it. First off, if you're not familiar with this, this is the Ineos Grenadier. This is a new car from a new car company. And this is supposed to be a back to the basics off-roader, and that's why it looks retro as well. This vehicle has solid axles front and rear. And just like old school off-roaders, it is built with heavy duty materials, so like even the doors have a big weight to them. Not only does this have a mechanical transfer case, it also has a center differential lock, as well as a front and a rear. This vehicle is truly unique in the US market. It is a heavy duty off-roader. We don't have that many here in the US market. Its main competitors are actually the full-size Toyota Land Cruiser, which we only get the Lexus version nowadays, and the Mercedes G-Wagon. Both of those are luxury cars, and so if you want a heavy duty basic off-road vehicle, this is pretty much it. So let's now dive into the things that I have absolutely loved about owning the Grenadier for the last year, and then we'll talk about the things that I haven't enjoyed. The first thing I've loved is all of the off-road kit that you can get from the factory. This has a winch, you've got underbody protection, you already have heavy duty bumpers, rock sliders, checker plates. It even has a ladder to access the roof, and little things like this that might be gimmicks, but storage in the tire carrier. And it already has pre-wired power up top for adding overlanding gear. Now the next thing that I think that goes without saying is the looks. This is a vehicle that is always going to look good. And that's because they went for a very old school kind of basic off-roader design that's just timeless at this point. Now the next thing is the material use with the Grenadier. All of the body panels, the doors, even the roof, everything is super heavy duty. And let me just show this to you guys. So most car roofs sound like a tin can, but let me just flip the microphone over so you guys can hear this. Like, you don't ever hear that with a car. Like most roofs, they bend in and all that kind of stuff. They've really used premium heavy duty materials all throughout the vehicle. And that continues all throughout the interior. Again, you would never call this luxury by any means, but I think it's more than luxurious enough. But everything just has this durable feel to it that you do not get in modern cars anymore. I've also loved the size of this vehicle. It's about 191 inches in total length, if I remember, so it's a little bit smaller than 200 series Land Cruiser. But all you need to know is there's plenty of space in the passenger cabin, and there is plenty of space in the cargo area as well. And speaking of cargo area, the whole double door situation is very useful. And speaking of useful, having physical buttons for pretty much everything you can see up top as well is awesome. And while we're in here, getting the brown leather and getting the safari windows is definitely worth it as an option. Something else that I've really enjoyed about the Grenadier is the driving experience. So the steering, it is a recirculating ball rack, which means it is kind of vague, but I think it kind of goes with the overall theme of the car. The benefit of it is off-road, it's fantastic. Like you don't get any kickback from rocks or anything as you go over them. But yeah, it is a little bit vague, but the suspension is also really tight in the Grenadier, and so the suspension kind of fixes that. And yeah, that's actually something I really like. Despite the fact that this has solid axles front and rear, the shocks and the springs help out a massive amount with the handling, and so even though the steering might travel a little bit, the shocks keep you in line quite well, and you can actually corner at a pretty quick pace. And you guys will notice, other than me not being seatbelted in because we're not driving anywhere, I have had no major issues. We've got no warning lights or anything. Again, not quite at 10,000 miles. I've got 85 more miles to go, which will happen in one day of commuting or even less at that point. But yeah, this thing has been dead reliable, other than a little software glitch that Ineos has already taken care of. Final thing that I've really enjoyed before we get into the dirt on the Grenadier, the gossip on the Grenadier, is the off-road capability. This is triple locked, body on frame, solid axles. It has all of the basics to be very capable off-road, and it is very capable off-road. You can fit 32s, 33s on this with stock suspension without any sort of lift. That's all you need for the Grenadier, in my personal opinion. It goes places. It has like 11 inches of ground clearance if you do that, because on the stock tires it has like 10.4, so you do a little bit of a bigger tire, you're right at 11 inches of ground clearance, and I haven't had a single obstacle that I have not been able to get over with this. So the first thing are these off-roading lights. Now they obviously add practicality. I think Ineos should have just had them covered from the factory, and you pull off the covers if you're going to use it. Gives it a funny bug-eyed look. There is aftermarket support to cover up the lights, but yeah, very minor thing. Now the next thing is how this front skid plate is angled. Now this is obviously angled for approach, but you'll notice it is just in the right shape and everything to just pick up. I have a rock chip there, and I've got some other chips here on it as well. I don't know if other Grenadier owners have the same problem as what I have. I do a lot of highway driving, but I have never had a front skid plate or bash plate get chipped up as much as this. Now remember how I told you how it's really cool that this is made with durable materials throughout? Something that is a little bit of a problem is the weight distribution. If you want to find the weight on a vehicle, you take the gross vehicle weight rating and then you take the payload and subtract the payload from the gross vehicle weight rating. So this weighs almost 6,500 pounds. And so yeah, with that heavy-duty construction, it is a bit more top-heavy, and so that's why you probably notice I don't have a roof rack, and I haven't lifted my Grenadier, and I have no plans of doing either of those. I know plenty of people will do that, but that kind of makes me go, because there's situations I've gotten in where I'm like, man, this feels a little bit tippy. It's kind of like a G-Wagon. G-Wagons have the same problem. There is no grab handle here for the driver to get into the vehicle. There is one for the passenger. You can add one after the fact. It should just be standard equipment. The next thing is the overall fit and finish on certain elements. You guys can see my door here, the driver door is slightly misaligned. Now I've had no leaking, I've had no locking issues, but you know, it's not as good as it could be. My cargo floor here in the rear is starting to kind of come up a little bit, and something on either one of these swing gates or in the back rattles when I drive sometimes. Not the worst, but a little bit annoying. Now I haven't had this happen in quite a bit, so I'm wondering if it was something that was just kind of fixed via software. Sometimes on the off-road tech would kind of just glitch out and it wouldn't work in terms of turning it on or off. But the fix for it as an owner was also really easy. You just turn off the car and you walk away and you lock it and you let it rest for like 5 minutes and then you get back in and then everything's reset. Now I do have a little bit of a gripe with the powertrain. So first off, let's talk about the good things. This feels like enough power in most circumstances, and it's actually pretty efficient. Again, this vehicle weighs almost 6,500 pounds, and I've got 33-inch tall tires, and I average 17 plus miles per gallon, sometimes a little bit higher than that, which is very impressive. So my big complaint with the powertrain is, especially off-road with steep climbs, there are times that I wish that I had more torque than what this powertrain has, and so I wish that Ineos at least gave us some more options in the US market. So here's what I think Ineos should do. They just need to offer more powertrain options in the Grenadier in the US market. The US market is insanely big and it is insanely wealthy. There are so many rich people that would buy a Grenadier if it had a cooler powertrain. I think the BMW B58 is a great powertrain, and I think that it's the powertrain that they should continue to offer as the baseline, as the reliable powertrain, but they should go a little bit crazier for the people that want crazier, that are willing to concede some reliability. So they could work with General Motors on like a diesel, for example. General Motors has the little 3-liter Duramax that's approved to be used in the US market. That diesel isn't necessarily the most reliable on the planet, but it's got great power outputs. It sounds fantastic. I mean, that diesel with the raised air intake would be such a cool driving experience in this kind of like old school theme. So they could go that way. And then BMW offers a 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 that has tons of horsepower. Throw that under the hood of the Grenadier as well. Let the buyers decide, right? If people are willing to concede a little bit of reliability, which I think a lot of people buying the Grenadier would be more than willing to concede some engine reliability, if they are able to get a more exciting driving experience. And again, someone like me, like I'd be willing to concede a little bit of reliability if I knew that I was able to go up hill climbs at a little bit more of a consistent rate because I had the power behind me. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on the powertrains. They need to offer more powertrains in the US market, and they need to be more powerful. Stick with the BMW B58 as the baseline reliable one though. Now it is time to come to the conclusion. Should you buy the Ineos Grenadier? Is it actually worth it from someone who has owned one for the last year? So here's my 2 cents. You need to at least look at the Grenadier before you buy any modern off-roader or any classic off-roader. Let's first talk about the modern off-roaders. Most of the modern off-roaders, kind of like I mentioned in the video, are just not as durable as they used to be. A lot of them use independent front suspension, which lacks durability and lacks articulation. Yes, a lot of the modern off-roaders are going to be more comfortable than the Grenadier when it comes to ride quality, but you lose the durability and you lose the articulation. On top of that, a lot of the modern off-roaders just don't use as durable of materials, and so just the overall vehicle longevity isn't going to be as good. And then they all have fancy traction control systems nowadays, and so the cars drive themselves. I mean, I've got my Land Cruiser behind me that has multi-terrain select and crawl control. It does everything for you, and so you don't really have to have any skill to take one of these Toyotas off-road, whereas the Grenadier actually requires a level of skill, so it makes it more exciting when you do get over obstacles because it was actually you doing it rather than the vehicle doing everything for you. So it gives you a more old school experience that you just don't get with other vehicles. And so again, it's at least worth checking out from that perspective. With old school off-roaders, first off, the maintenance on them a lot of times is a nightmare, you know, finding parts and all that kind of stuff for it. The Grenadier is a new vehicle with a warranty, so that's a huge benefit of it over the old school off-roaders. It has the durability of the old school off-roaders. It has a lot of the experience. But what it doesn't have is the lack of daily drivability. Old school off-roaders are not daily drivable at all. I don't care what people say. Nobody is going to daily drive an old school Defender, for example. It is incredibly slow. It is incredibly loud and incredibly uncomfortable. The Grenadier has similar durability to like old Defenders, old Land Cruisers and all of that. But you can daily drive it, right? I've got almost 10,000 miles on mine because it's very daily drivable. Again, it's not as comfortable as something like, you know, a new Land Cruiser, but it's more than comfortable enough. I would say that it is about as comfortable as like a new Jeep Wrangler or Ford Bronco, for example, but it's actually a little bit quieter with the wind noise compared to those two because it's a little bit more insulated. It's not a convertible. So I think the Grenadier is worth at least looking at, and I think a lot of you that are buying these old school off-roaders and a lot of you that are buying these newer off-roaders, Wranglers, Broncos, you know, the new Toyota Land Cruiser 250, the Lexus GX 550, the Land Rover Defender, would actually enjoy the Grenadier a lot more when it comes to the off-roading experience, and then also a lot of the on-road driving dynamics where it's not just this kind of like boring, soulless car that gets you from A to B. So that's been my ownership experience over the last year, and those are my thoughts on the Grenadier. I think that it's definitely worth looking at, and I think there's a lot of people that buy new and old that should buy this thing that's a combination of new and old, and they would actually like it more than either category.